I actually sat here to record a video that I was so passionate about just a few hours ago. But to be honest with you, right now, I just can't do it. Like, I'm making a lot of mistakes. I'm kind of realizing that my brain is not working. And it's very fascinating how us as human beings sometimes forget that we are not actively making a choice to do most of the things that we're doing, and how over 95% of our daily decisions are very subconscious. The brain is making them for us. And when you're doing this type of work where you literally have to do research, the script, you have to speak in front of a camera, it becomes so apparent and evident that, your brain is literally carrying you every single day. You might think that you're the one controlling your brain, but at the end of the day, it is really your brain that is controlling you. And so I just decided to make a short video for my niche audience because I feel like since they're interested in topics that talk about logic, that talk about reason, just talk about thought processes, how we make decisions, psychology, sociology, anthropology, all those things, I just thought about talking about something that I really like talking about. And this is at the top of my head. It's not even scripted, but I want to talk about the three levels of existence. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because when I deconstructed and I started, unlearning a lot of things, I realized how automated my life was. I realized how I was not actively making choices in my life. And I kind of realized that so many of my people, even people that are watching this video right now, have never actively or consciously made a decision that has changed their life. Everything is just on autopilot. And I think that it's very important for people to know the three levels of existence. So the first level of existence is instinctual living. This is when you just live based on your instinct. So the brain lies to us every single day. The brain does not record stuff. It is not a camera. It predicts. So everything that you experience, you don't just experience it as it is, you experience it as the brain interprets it. So this means that the brain needs to have some sort of shortcuts to predict what is going to happen. So the brain operates on shortcuts, and some of these shortcuts are what we can call biases. Sometimes, for example, halo effect, and it is a cognitive shortcut. That is a bit of a bias, but it allows us to usually be drawn to people that are more attractive and then consider them to be more trustworthy, consider them to be more kind, consider them to be honest or sincere, simply based on how they look. This is a bias, but it's a cognitive shortcut that humans have used for I don't know how long. So when you're instinctually living, it means that you're basing your entire life based on just how your brain reacts to things around you. You're just basing on instinct. When you are thirsty, you want to drink water. When you're hungry, you want to eat salty stuff. You want to eat salty stuff. When you want fatty foods, you just eat fatty foods. But we have kind of realized over time through research that instinctual living is the lowest level of existence. Why? Because you have to consciously make certain decisions. You have to think about certain decisions that you're going to make. Sometimes you actually feel like you want sweet stuff, but you have to consider your health. And we know that sugar is not really good for you, especially in high amounts. So now you have to limit the amount of sugar you have to eat, even though your body is demanding that it wants sugar or fat or salt. You now have to control it. So as a human being, you can't just be like, this is who I am, this is what I like. We have so many other things that we're drawn to naturally as human beings that we have to avoid if we want to live a well-meaning life. That is exactly why when you're attracted to a certain type of person, you can easily identify that this person is not good for you. They probably have a bad temper, they probably lie a lot, they probably are just a psychopath. And you have to think about all these things. It's not just about who am I attracted to? Your brain can tell you that this is the best thing, but you have to think about it and be like, is this really the best decision for me? So just living through the instinct is kind of dangerous for you because your brain is using ancient shortcuts. Okay, it is using shortcuts that worked maybe a few centuries or thousands of years ago, but do not work now in 2026. So you actually need to curb your own instincts. You can't just say, oh, this is just who I am. You actively have to fight against your own instinct. The second level of existence is when you're just a culture creature. This is when you just absorb whatever is in your environment, the religion, the values, the beliefs, the standards, the morals. You don't get to think about anything. You just accept and embrace it as it is. And usually this is done through conformity. Unfortunately, human beings are creatures of validation. All of us, including me, including you, we all want validation. And unless we get it in healthy ways, we're going to get it in unhealthy ways. Unfortunately, the human nervous system requires validation to operate optimally. You need other human beings in your life to appreciate you, to like you, to want to spend time with you. That is very important for your brain. So, because of this, human beings usually conform to the cultural expectations in that particular society. So, in our culture, we learn what is correct, we learn what is polite, we learn what is disgusting, we learn what is acceptable, and we learn what is immoral. And I think the saddest thing about this is that culture presents itself as a reality. It hardly presents itself as just a suggestion or a better way of living. It always presents itself like the best way to live. So, because of this, sometimes people may be inhibited from actually growing as people just because the culture does not allow for that type of thinking or that type of behavior. There is literally nothing wrong with culture. There is literally nothing wrong with tradition. But are we actively thinking about it? Are we actively trying to improve it? Are we thinking about the pros and cons of any of these cultural practices that we have so that at least our children can grow up in a better society than we grew up in? I think the most dangerous thing about culture is the fact that people that are creatures of culture usually do not want progress. They actively fight against anyone that wants to improve the society because they feel like where we are as a people is where we should always be. Yet culture is very dynamic and it is supposed to improve. So even though you are much more than just a creature of instinct, you are a creature of culture. You've absorbed a lot of these cultural practices, rituals, values, beliefs, and you feel like now you have a model of how to live your life. Still, you are incomplete because you're still absorbing other people's ideas without necessarily looking them up or examining them. What I consider to be the third and highest level of existence is probably reason. It is when a human being becomes a creature of reason. They actually think about things, they actually examine things, they actually evaluate things, they actually ponder about things, ideas, they ponder about the things that they believe, the things that they accept, the things that their morals and everything else around them. Being a creature of reason is not about intelligence. It is not about sounding smart. It is not about thinking highly of yourself. It is actually about examining your own life. It is about auditing your life. The things that you believe, the things that you say, the things that you think about, the things that you value, the things that you say every single day. What is it that is causing you to react in a certain way? What is causing you to believe in the things that you believe in? This is the highest level of existence. It is at this stage that people actually start having original thoughts, thinking about things that you've never thought about or you've never heard anyone else talk about, coming up with your own original thoughts and ideas. Now, for me, I think this is the hardest level because you now have to counter your instinct and you have to counter your culture because every single idea has to stand on its own merit. You have to examine it independently without the force from culture and without the force from instinct. And for me, I feel like when you start living in this realm where you have to evaluate everything and examine everything, your life stops being so certain. You lose the sense of certainty, right? It is easier to be certain than to doubt, right? So when you are just questioning everything and you're trying to find the merits and the demerits for everything, your life seems to be a bit unstable in a way because you don't really have an anchor to an extent. But it is discomfort that I feel is only temporary. The more you think about things and the more you find you find connections and the more that you establish how everything else works together, eventually you're going to find a common place that you can call an anchor. So there's nothing wrong with instinct, there's nothing wrong with culture, but at the end of the day, we need to use our mind. We need to think about the things that we believe. Being a creature of reason is one of the most difficult points to be, especially as an African or as a Zimbabwean, because it forces you to get out of your comfort zone. You have to start examining yourself, especially, the things that you subscribe to, your own behavior, how you respond to other people, why you treat people the way that you treat people, the classism that you have, the colorism that you have, the racism that you might also have, the tribalism that you might also have. There's so many things that you actually believe in that you don't even know you believe in. And you can only start seeing those things when you start living as a creature of reason, questioning everything and anything. There must literally be nothing that is in your mind that you have not set down to examine and to ponder on because you want to actually understand it and your reaction to it and your relationship to it. Those ideas that just linger in your mind, have they been examined yet? And this process leads you to become extremely self-aware. But this does not mean that you know everything about yourself or know everything about the world. It just means you know enough to be able to navigate the world, understanding how everything is in relationship to everything else. So I think the best way to put it is that when you become a creature of reason, you become an editor. You start looking at the things that you gravitate towards as a creature of instinct, and you look at the things that you gravitate towards as a creature of culture, and you just edit. You edit the ones that you think are beneficial and delete those that you think are not beneficial to you or to the people around you or even your existence as a human being. Being a creature of reason is not so that you can be judgmental. It is so that you can understand why human beings behave the way they behave. It actually makes you much more compassionate and empathetic, because now you kind of understand why human beings behave sometimes the way that they behave, even though their behavior is very unacceptable. But you kind of understand what is driving them to behave in the way that they behave. For example, the last video that I recorded when I was talking about Zimbabwe's obsession with big cars, it's so easy to just say, oh, Zimbabweans are in love with big cars because they're selfish, they're greedy. It's easy to do that without actually taking the time to understand why exactly are we drawn to these very big cars. It takes a lot of self-awareness to understand that you also have some sort of gravitation towards a specific thing. It's just that sometimes you may not have access to those things. But if you really think about it, you start to see just how you value also these things. Why? Because you're a creature of culture as well. So human beings are creatures of instinct, they're creatures of culture, and they're also creatures of reason. But unfortunately, the reason one has to be developed is something that has to be actively and consciously trained. You have to be trained to be able to think about the things that you should think about, and no one else can train you. Only you can train yourself. So yeah, I was just yapping for no good reason for the past I don't know how many minutes, just because I couldn't finish my video and I was having a very hard time recording a yap session. But I know it's just jumbled up because it's not scripted, just me speaking from my mind. But what do you think? Which level of existence do you think you are at? Are you just a creature of instinct? Or maybe you're now a creature of culture? Or maybe you're now a creature of reason. Do you really think about every single thing that you do? Do you really examine every single belief system, every single value, every single goal that you have? Do you think about how those things came about? Why you feel a particular way towards certain things? And why do you think that you deserve to do those things or to achieve those things? If you really got into a position where every single thought passes through a scan machine and you get to examine why you think the way you think, why you're thinking this at this particular time, and what you should do about that particular idea. So my name is Adlene as usual. Thank you so much for watching my video. I know this is not a usual yap session, but I had to, guys. I just had to, because I couldn't waste this makeup, prepared this makeup just to make a video. But unfortunately, I don't think I'm feeling very well, I'm having a really bad headache. I think the bad headache has something to do with it. I think it's also because it's a bit cold today. So thank you so much for watching this video, for spending your very precious minutes with me while I just yap and not entertain you at all. I really appreciate each and every person that watches my video, because I know that my videos sometimes are not that interesting, because they're very bland. There's not a lot of thing going on the screen, but you still watch anyway. That's why I appreciate each and every person that is my supporter. So see you in the next one. Let me go to bed.